Barigani, Karibuni, and thank you for being with us again. Welcome to our conversations on Africa from an African perspective. Just a few quick announcements before we start. We will not be running our conversations next week, Sunday 24th and Sunday 31st. We need a break. We need to take some time and rest so that we can come back and give you our full presence, I guess, for lack of a better word. But next week, on Thursday, the 21st, Kumbukeni will be joining the Young African Leaders Forum, the Walter Roddy Foundation, and Jumuiya ya Nguzo Saba to host a Kwanzaa event that will be broadcasting to Africa. So connecting the bridge between the diaspora and Africa and uniting our cultures. Thank you. My brothers, please.
UK in the house.
Oh, yes. The name again is Adesoji Ginla, and reaching you from the belly of the beast, the mother of all empires. The name again is Adesoji Ginla, and as Brother Milton would say, welcome to another session of the Open University. And as you can see, we have an august visitor with us. I would not steal his thunder, and I would ask Brother Milton to do his honors. Yeah,
Yes,
welcome.
yes. Milton Alimadi, based here in the United States. The declining, remaining global empire as new empires emerge. This is our era. And we're preparing the groundwork by spreading knowledge, as Sister Nduku said, from a Pan-African perspective and educating the world. And listeners, you've seen this guest before. You've heard this guest before. This is a fountain of knowledge that makes every African and every descendant of African proud. And by the time this show is over, you're going to agree with me if this is the first time you're hearing him. Karibu. Back to you, Sister Ndugu.
Now that he set the red carpet for you, the only thing he didn't do is call you Excellency. Go ahead.
You see, in the era of self-proclaimed leaders,
Excellency.
Ambassador.
in the era of self-proclaimed leaders, self-proclaimed ambassadors and ministers.
Welcome.
Well, let the people know who you are, please.
Yeah, okay. So listen, please do not listen to Milton. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Don't listen to Milton. I'm a servant of Africa. This is for sure. And then they called me Professor of Pan-African Studies and History, which is not technically true because I am a student of Pan-Africanism. And then, so I believe in Pan-Africanism. Friends and I, Milton, and now Adesoji Nduku, many other brothers and sisters, Heather Beno, Maurice Kani, George Duncan, Frank, I would say many others. We've been promoting a new dispensation of Pan-Africanism. And since June, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Togo, His Excellency, that's the real one, His Excellency Professor Robert Dusé decided to appoint me as the chairman of the 9th Pan-African Congress to be held in Togo from the 22nd of October to the 26th of October 2024. So this is what we're doing, and then we're trying to do something different in the history of Pan-Africanism and the history of Africa. Thanks.
All right. And our conversation will circle all that information that Brother Lagoke gave us, including, as stated, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. So let's get right into it. Ndugu Lagoke, there was a special event in Ghana recently. Let's talk about it. The reparations conference in Ghana.
Yeah.
Please update it on
Okay.
that.
So this one we will make it quick. There was from the 14th of November to the 17th, 2023. There was a major conference in Accra on reparations. The goal was to build a united front for reparations, and then the African Union, even though it was a Ghanaian initiative, it was endorsed by the African Union. and then the big continental body ran that CARICOM, which is the Caribbean Community, which was heavily represented in Ghana. And there were several scholars, activists, justice seekers, freedom lovers from the Global African Union community. Great names like Dr. Ron Daniels, who is the founder of the Institute for Black Studies, Institute for Black World in the 21st century, and who is also leading a project about Haiti. And Dr. Cheryl Grills, who is heavily involved like in the conversation about reparation in California, and Dr. Chenzira Davis, the head of the Caribbean Scholars Association, and Dr. Hilary Brown, and then Dr. David Commission from the CARICOM, and many other people were there. And then it was a nice conversation. Basically, it is about how to make sure that reparations be in the central part of conversations regarding Africa's self-determination and Africa's redemption. So this is what I can say to introduce the topic.
Okay, so I just have a quick question, and it won't take long, so we can move on to other topics. First of all, listeners, it's important to know that Professor Gnaka actually teaches at Lincoln University, which of course is the alma mater of Kwame Nkrumah. In terms of the African Union, brother, can you tell us the importance of their participation in the global reparations movement so that listeners can understand the importance of having an institution like the AU involved?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a very important concept. When we were in Ghana, when Black Americans were talking about reparations, because they have a long tradition when it comes to the struggle for reparations, like 18th century, 19th century, Dr. King, Queen Mother Audley Moore was one of the first people to talk about reparation in the 60s. So, Ron Daniels gave the history, and some other leaders were there who gave the history of what Black Americans did when it came to the conversation about reparations. Now, when we heard the leaders or representatives of CARICOM, which established a commission for reparations since 2013, the feelings that they have been working in a very sustained way to advance the cause of reparations. And the feeling in the room is that the African leaders seem to be absent in the conversation about reparations.
Yeah.
And then so I think there were some leaders who, like somebody like Bron Kagoro, who works for Open Society, who's from Zimbabwe, Pan-Africanist, somehow reminded the audience that, there were some initiative taken by African leaders. And then there was one major meeting, I think it was organized by Abiola. I think it was a great, like somebody was a rich guy from Nigeria, as the Suji can tell us. And then he put together, I think this is what I heard, a conference in 1993, and they called that the Abuja Declaration. And then Ababio, who is the leader of the diaspora in the office of the Ghanaian presidency, spoke about that conference in Ghana in 1999, when people gathered in Accra. Of course, there was one in 2022, but 1999 was a major conference on reparations. And then the Durban declarations in South Africa also somehow made reference, to the question of reparations. So it has been, so the African leaders have also been involved in the conversation, but somehow people may think that it is only the Black Americans or the leaders in the Caribbean. Right. So during the conference, we could see that people were revealing all this information, and then my idea is that people need to do their homework to see who did what, and so that we can have a comprehensive understanding about the conversations on reparations in different corners of the world, where we can find the various African communities. So, but now that Ghana has taken the lead, and then the African Union endorsed the Ghanaian the project that led by Ghana, and the African Union wants now it's the continental body on the continent, and then CARICOM to partner. So the conference was a major milestone in the history of the conversation about reparation. But to be honest, the declaration at the end of the conference did not reflect the substance and the essence of the conversations. And that is something that we need to rectify. And that's why I appreciate you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it, because it was about building a united front for reparation. It was about the centrality of Pan-Africanism in the conversation about reparation. It was about Ubuntu as a central paradigm or ethos in the conversation about reparation. It was about putting together a tribunal in order to discuss the question of reparation. Many other beautiful ideas that we heard in the room that we could not see, like in the final declaration, but that's something that we are rectifying.
So two things for me in order to create clarity for the masses, right? Our goal is to reach our brothers and sisters all the way in the village where I come from. Like declaration that you're talking about, what does that mean? Is that a summary of the events? And then also please explain what reparations is.
Yeah, I think reparations, yeah, you're right. So reparation is about what? Wrong was done to some people, and therefore, they need to get reparations. So the same thing that happened to the Jewish people, and the president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, even in his speech, he spoke about that. The Japanese Americans who got reparations after World War II. He spoke about the Jewish people who got reparation after World War II because of the Holocaust conducted by Hitler. And then many other people in the room said, you know what, if you want to give reparation to the Jewish people for the 6 million Jewish people who were killed during World War II, something that we do not dispute, no problem. Africans, the people of African descent, endured slavery for 400 years. They endured colonialism for more than 100 years. They endured white supremacy, the southern part of Africa, which lasted for 342 years.
Right.
When you talk about this, when Cape Colony was created in 1652,
Sure, yeah.
when we talk about neocolonialism, the Confederacy, and the Jim Crow laws, all the things that have impacted people of African ancestry and people of African descent. Therefore, if you can give money to the Jewish people for the 6 million people, there were more than 100 million people who suffered from the system articulated and conceived by white supremacists. Therefore, we need reparation. So, like I said, some people here and there in the Caribbean, in America, have been talking about that. And then I know you guys, myself, many others, we are part of that group of people who say, you know what, we too need reparations. Oh, it can take different forms. It can be about land. It can be about the cancellation of debt. It can be about something that many people talk about, data eco, which is what the Ubuntu corporate social responsibility. It can be about all those forms that we can use to talk about reparations. So that we can have our dignity. We can be seen as human beings. So if the Jewish and Japanese can have reparation, unless people think that Black people are not human beings,
Right.
we too deserve reparation.
Also, it can be about getting the West and especially the Bretton Woods organizations, institutions out of Africa so that they stop meddling in Africa.
No, I don't know if we can get them out of Africa, but the conversation is about the decolonization of the international financial system. It is about the decolonization of the global economy.
Yes.
So the conversation is about, it's not just about getting something and now we're going to go again with the same system with a new name. So the conversation is a global conversation. It's about the restoration of our dignity. It is about the respect, the restoration of our culture. It's also about the return of the African cultural artifacts taken by the Europeans that they think that they need to keep in the European Museum just because they can. And it is about time that we undertake that conversation. And this is what we are doing.
Yeah,
that's why the Accra conference preparation was very important. But even though we did not see the media report the way we wanted, but many of the people were there. in different places are speaking, and then when we talk about Togo in a few, we around the Togolese initiative endorsed by the African Union, we want to take the conversation to the next level.
So by declaration, when you say it didn't match what was said and what happened, you're saying the report that they gave of the events of the
I was going to forget that usually when people have meetings,
communique,
like a final document that summarizes all the conversations. So it has been like that everywhere.
And what did they leave out?
What was that?
What did they leave out? That
We come to that. One of the things that some people can call that proclamation. I think that's the word they use. Some other people can talk about declarations. Some other people can talk about final resolutions. But in the case of the conference in Accra, it was well organized. The ambassador Amoa Twin, that's the name. She was the ambassador of Ghana to the United States. She's now the ambassador of Ghana to the African Union. She was the head of the conference secretariat. The conference, was really well organized. It was nice. Opening ceremony, closing ceremony, and then all the discussion were plenaries. It was not just panels. All the people who were there were in the room.
A lot of good fufu and jollof.
Yeah, people love that, but I was not talking about that. So we have different themes and topics people discuss, and now at the end, we wanted to see like a summary of all the conversations and then the decisions or the propositions. The feeling that somebody like me, I told them when I spoke that the reason why I wanted to be in Ghana, it is because I wanted to put emphasis on the centrality of Pan-Africanism and Ubuntu in the conversation about reparations. Many Pan-Africanists who were in the room somehow were talking about reparation. They had not, and they somehow they missed to link that to the conversation about Pan-Africanism. Then after I spoke, many people started talking about Pan-Africanism and Ubuntu and some other value systems. Now, in the final declarations, there was no mention of the word Pan-Africanism. There was no mention of the word Ubuntu. And there was somebody who suggested the idea of putting together a tribunal. There was no mention of such a thing about a tribunal to look into the question of reparations. So this is what happened. And but again, that's it's just something that is not too important because we are still alive. We were there. We were the witnesses, and we're talking about what really happened in Accra.
But just to go quickly and explain that to our community, and for those of you who have not read this book, I recommend reading this book. This is by Kwame Nkrumah, The Struggle Continues. And he talks about the Western disruption of progress in Africa. And the fact that an African event has certain things that take place during the conference, and the report is not reflective of that. And the things that are taken out are the things that mean African unity, Ubuntu, African unity, Pan-Africanism, African unity. Who would want to see Africans not united? So who played a role in making sure that that report did not match the event? Just a question for all of us to think about. Brothers, we can proceed.
Yes, I was. Thank you for that summary of what transpired in Accra. Linking is often one of the problems we have in terms of history. Kwame Nkrumah once said, our freedom is meaningless if we don't extrapolate it to the breaking down of the hegemony that it's against all African people. I paraphrase. When you mentioned the Abuja Protocol in terms of the reparation movement, some would actually ascribe to the idea that one of the reasons why Chief MK Abiola, full name being Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola, was not allowed to ascend the presidency of Nigeria in 1993, which is considered the freest and fairest election in the history of Nigeria. Because in fact, everybody that witnessed that election, there was no animosity. In fact, in the history of Nigeria, ask anybody, because I witnessed it. That was the first and the last time I voted in Nigerian elections. Everything was done prime and proper. But the system, because he placed the issue of reparation and the issue of Pan-Africanism, linking the two as a core principle of his government, Now, the question to you, in light of what you understand from the conference, is: do you get a sense coming away from the official position? When I mean official position, obviously you've alluded to it in terms of the communique. Do you get a sense that the people in the room actually know the kind of work that should be done?
Yeah, first of all, before I give an answer, when you were talking about Beulah, I was thinking about something. Like usually, like I just told you at the beginning, that people call me professor of history and Pan-Africanism, but I am more of a student than a professor. Why I say that? This what you just said. I know, we were young. We heard about Abiola. I don't know the team. He was the president of a team. I forgot the name now.
Abiola Babes.
Abi-
It was the proprietor of Abiola Babes.
no, there was a
Before.
different team. When he was a head of a soccer team, anyway, I will remember.
Yeah, that's Abiola Babes. That's his
Okay.
team.
Okay.
His team. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, we were young. We loved the guy, and then same thing with George Weah. Because of everything that he represented, and all of a sudden he wanted to be president. From far from Ivory Coast. We have sympathy for him, and then later on he went to prison, and then one thing that we need to investigate. They decided that he should be killed, because that's the conversation. It's not just about Abacha, who was supposed to be gone. It was that they wanted both of them. The
Gone.
people today were talking about democracy. They wanted Abiola to be gone, and somehow the guy was in prison. Now the details, and then the guy was killed. Now, then we need, as we talk about Nkrumah and all those other leaders, it is important that somebody like me or us, we do more research on Abiola, as the conversation about reparations. That's why I really liked the fact that people reminded the audience that, what, you can talk about CARICOM, it is important. Queen Audley Moore, all of them that played major role in the history of the United States, Dr. King. But in the case of Africa, if somebody was a billionaire and who come from a billionaire and decided to embrace the cause of the African unity, the African Renaissance before Thabo Mbeki and co., and who spoke about reparation, that's a major element. And as we talk about reparations, it's not just we want to be territorial, but as Africans, we need to go back to that gentleman. So that is a very important element. So that's why I'm talking about it. And people have many people know, but there are, of course, like I said, it's a novel topic, even in Africa. Even though there were many people do not know. Some people in the Caribbean community and in the Black American community, they have an idea, but of course, the conversation is not exhausted. People need to continue the conversation so that everyone can understand that at least we need to agree on the imperative of reparations.
Yes.
We agree on that. How it's going to be done, that is another conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And one other important point, Abiola also had a platform, a media platform to push these ideas.
Yes.
Because I remember as a young man, I was writing for his publication called African Concord.
Correct. Thank you very much.
I was not aware of that one.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. In fact, I discovered African Concord when I was in Uganda. So I used to write a monthly, you're not even an official journalist, but you feel strongly enough to submit articles. And once in a while, they end up publishing it.
Okay.
And you pick up the magazine, it's like, wait.
Oh, my name is there.
Their name is there. And you invite everybody to go to that. And I remember even from back in the day, how every issue, every topic was approached from a Pan-African perspective.
Yeah.
So I bring this all up to say, to reinforce the importance of having a platform like that, even today, as we keep pushing for this agenda.
Yep. Can I just quickly add, also, it wasn't just the fact that he had the platform. It was the fact that that platform was a stepping stone from some of the best Nigerian journalists. In fact, one of them was actually killed with a bomb blast. because he was writing a story based. His name is Delegiwa, so if you Google him, it will come up. Who killed Delegiwa. But there are questions, and to sort of destroy his legacy. Even his wife was killed. One of his wives was killed. His Kudirat Abiola was killed. She was killed a stone throw from my secondary school. Actually gone down on the streets of Lagos. In critical, what's the word? Mafia style killing. And in broad daylight. That was the worst part. In broad daylight and just outside a military barracks. So you can't make this stuff up. So it's, those kind of stuff, then that, well, this kind of, what's it called? These kind of challenges are sometimes they're there, but, you know of some of them. And why was she gone down particularly? Because when the election was annulled, she became the voice, just like Winnie Mandela was the voice of Mandela in prison. She became the voice of him. And she went toe to toe with anybody, this debate, anybody, anywhere. She will turn up, so much so that she's now recognized actually in New York. There's an avenue named Kudirat Abiola Avenue in New York. I think it's in Brooklyn, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So there's an avenue just named after her because of what she went through. So
I know the daughter, Hafsat Abiola.
Yeah, Hafsat Abiola, yes.
So we have a lot of work to do.
Believe you me,
we have to restore the legacies of Abiola and Abiola's wife, and like many others, who have played. But now in the conversation about reparation, definitely we need to talk more about Abiola than any other person.
And that newspaper has since been proscribed.
Okay, definitely.
Not surprising. Not surprising.
We will have that conversation, and we will ask you, Gnaka Lagoke, to join us for that. Ali Madi, you had something to say?
Oh no, I was just going to say maybe our esteemed guest can now move us and tell us a little more about Togo and what's going to go on there, and tell us about the upcoming events in Brazil as well.
Okay,
in whichever order you prefer.
Yeah, so I can answer now or yes. Okay, so the one thing I want to say is that I'm smiling because I was thinking about everything that is happening in the Pan-African arena. Things are happening on the continent of Africa. We have the People's Power movement in Senegal, even as we speak. Macky Sall was trying in order to prevent Ousmane Sonko to run for president. It looks like a court in Senegal said that Ousmane Sonko can run. That's a new development. It is an outcome of the people mobilization in the streets and whatever they can in Senegal. We saw the rise to power of officers in Mali, in Burkina, in Niger, as people were fighting against terrorism, and then they had the feeling that the West was playing a game with them. So the officers, as they wanted to respond to the calls of the people in the streets, took power, and they seemed to be engaging their respective countries, like in the struggle, for more sovereignty of Africa. And then in South Africa, they are about to launch the second decade of the Agenda 2063, which in the line of the continental plans, which started with the Lagos Plan of Action 1980, with the Treaty of Abuja 1991, with NEPA 2003, and then we have Agenda 2063 2013, which clearly claimed Pan-Africanism. And then one of the flagship projects is about the INGA project and so many other things. And then
and for listeners, the INGA project is so critical. Maybe just spend a minute or two explaining its potential.
The INGA project is about the construction of a hydroelectric power around or on the Congo River. Which is one of the greatest rivers like in Africa, according to scientists. Sheikh Anta Diop spoke about it in his book, Black Africa, the economic and cultural basis of a federated state.
Yep.
He spoke about the importance of that project that can provide electricity to the entire continent of Africa. So finally, the African Union, under the leadership of Dr. Ndlamini Zuma, somehow with a team, they put that project as one of the flagship projects of the Agenda 2063. So at least it is there. We hope that African leaders do everything that they can in order to create that project to reduce the lack of electricity on the continent of Africa. Yes, that's as you know, many places in Africa do not have electricity. I'm not even talking about the rural area. I'm talking about even the urban places. So we have such a project that is there, and so yes, that's the INGA project. So go ahead.
As you talk about the INGA project and you talk about the blackouts in Africa, Kenya just had a second one where the Kenya airport, the main airport in Kenya, was out of electricity, and even the generators that act as backup did not work. So my thing, and there's a big deal going on because apparently Kenya wants to sell those nationally owned organizations or institutions to Western entities, so including the Kenya Power and Lighting. And so here's my question. The INGA project, how do we protect it from that? Because I think what is happening to Kenya is just the beginning. I mean, it's the continuation because it's happened before. And that being, so I have called out Agenda 2063 as a Western. The we in the Agenda 2063, according to me, is not us, it's the West. So if they're considering them as we who are going to improve Africa for themselves by 2063, and the INGA project is in there, how do we stop it from falling in their hands? Because they're buying African institutions and yeah.
Okay, so before I answer that question, let me finish about my answer.
Sorry.
It's okay. On the previous one. So I was talking about the Agenda 2063. I was about to say that Togo took the initiative to launch the African diaspora, the African roots in the African diaspora decade. And then it was endorsed by the African Union. So under the auspices of that decade, Togo took the initiative to organize the Pan-African Congress. It's going to be held in Lomé from October 22nd to the 2nd to the 26th, 2024. And there were 15 countries that endorsed it at the beginning. South Africa is one of them. And then the regional conference was organized in South Africa on science and technology. So it was adopted it was adopted by the high-level committee that regional conferences be organized in the build-up towards Lomé. So South Africa organized that one, December the 4th to the 5th. And then the next one is going to be in Brazil, Salvador de Bahia. It is going to be about remembrance, restitutions, reparations, and then reconstruction. So many people of the diaspora will certainly be there to continue the conversations and take it that Ghana started this year and to take it to the next level. So this is what we're doing. And then the way we are putting together the project is that the resolutions, the decisions of each regional conference will be discussed and amended or if need be, or adopted during the big event in Lomé. So this is what we are doing.
Great.
Okay, so I think you said you were going to respond to the sisters.
Thank you, Olimadi.
The sisters' aggressive question to her.
The aggressive question. You know why people are labeling me. Please do not join them.
No. Listen to this. For me, the answer is simple. For me, the answer is simple. And I agree with you. That's one of the reasons why the new economic partnership of Africa's development could not succeed. They put together a number of ideas, and then they came. They did not resolve the issue of how to secure the funding of those projects, and the way they did it, it looks like the project was tied to the neoliberal framework, and then they have not claimed any African value system, even though they were talking about culture, and they did not propose a new paradigm that can be based on humanness, on social justice or economic justice.
Yes.
And then, of course, Thabo Mbeki and many other, even though they have done great things in many other aspects, but that NEPAD could not succeed, and of course, it failed. Now, it's the same thing with when I came to Toronto, when I was on a panel 2 days ago. I saw some youngsters. One of them is working for Afreximbank in Barbados, and another one like working here in the field of business. They were so excited about the African continental free trade area. Yes, with this now there's no borders. I say, please, I'm suggesting caution. Because it is not because people who try to consider the previous plans, it's not that they were stupid.
Right.
You know, the structure of the African economies is neo-colonial. And then we know how the business is conducted. If we don't change that, there's nothing we're going to get. Because, listen, I am from the Ivory Coast, and the ECOWAS is composed of 16 countries. Who is preventing those Africans, to do business within ECOWAS? No one. First of all, it can be the loss of vision, lack of a vision, or people do not see the businesses going beyond those artificial borders. So no one is preventing them. And those who understood that they need to go beyond the borders, they're making more money. Because why are you going to be, you're going to think that the small market of Ivory Coast or the small market of Togo or Benin are going to be sufficient for you? But the reason why it is so difficult for people to do things, it is because we don't have that vision of Africa as one. So you can have the African continental free trade area, but it is not going. It's not because you will adopt that immediately people are going to make money. You have to change the structures. That's the first problem. The second problem, what I told my co-panelists is that the ones who are going to benefit more than the Africans are going to be the multinationals.
Absolutely.
And when you talk about multinational, you talk about companies that are not in the hands of Africans.
The West.
So people have to understand that. And then when I see people so excited about that, I don't even get it. So now, how do you promote your own people to become strong enough so that they can compete with those multinationals? The same companies that give subsidies to the farmers, and then they prevent African countries to give subsidies to the African farmers, so that they can take the product and dump that on the African market. These are the things that people need to take into account when they're having conversation. Yeah. So I'm not too excited about the idea of creating the INGA project if this has to be in the hands of foreign entities. Right. So that's my answer to your question, too.
Right, but I would like to add to that. I would like those ideas to be in place and be percolating as we do the job of uplifting the African consciousness and creating more Africans that think like people involved in this conversation.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. If you don't mind, something I want to ask, I'll say. For instance, I saw people so excited about the BRICS.
Thank you. Please.
Everyone is excited about the BRICS. Oh, the BRICS. And then when I see that, I say, okay. For me, the positive thing about the BRICS is that the BRICS gives what I call the power of choice to Africans.
There you go.
And that's it.
The only, or maybe the most important advantage of the BRICS, because before the BRICS, we do not have any other choice but to deal with the institution of the Bretton Woods. Correct. The IMF, the World Bank, and many other European agencies.
Right.
But now with the BRICS, we have the power of choice. But because those Francophone countries are still
tethered.
They cannot even think about going to the BRICS.
Possibilities,
So they're still over there, like, let's say, in the I don't want to say the mental slavery, but they're still there. The BRICS is not helping them. Now, my suggestion is this: we need to change the paradigm that people are using to do businesses. We may have sympathy for Russia because Russia yesterday helped African countries become independent. We can have sympathy for China because China helped African countries become independent. Or today, China is helping African countries have the power of choice. But we may have sympathy for India because India was at the forefront of the non-alignment movement in the 50s.
Right.
We can have sympathy for those countries that are major players in the BRICS.
And was also
if those countries want to do business with Africa and they're using the same paradigm, the neoliberal paradigm, to come and extract the resources of Africa,
right?
We can have sympathy for them, but we have to tell them this cannot continue.
Absolutely.
And then, as we need to think about a better world, we need to think about a new world that can be based on human solidarity and shared prosperity. People like me, we think that, again, we have the paradigm that we can use, we can claim, that we can see in different countries of the BRICS that are similar, identical. Let me talk about that quickly.
Yes, please.
The Indians, they have what Gandhi used to articulate his non-violent strategy, which is called Satyagraha, which is about hold fast to the truth, which is about humanness, which is about human solidarity. Brazil, under the leadership of Lula, Brazil put together a program called Bolsa Familia. And according to that project, Brazil was giving money to poor people in Brazil.
Right.
If they can send their children to school and if they can take all the vaccination shots for their children. Bolsa Familia in Brazil, according to the statistics coming from the West, more than 20 million people were lifted out of poverty thanks to that project. And now, in the case of Russia, over there's a concept different from the neoliberal worldview that is in force, which is called M-I-R, which is about village, which is about community. And in the case of Africa, we have the Ubuntu philosophy. Now that some Egyptians, now that some countries are joining, some Arab countries are joining the BRICS, we have what people call Ummah, which is about, these are Muslim called community. So if all those countries have in common a similar philosophical concept with the same values, sharing, compassion, community, why those countries that want to go and challenge the West, why those countries that are talking about the de-dollarization of the economy are not thinking about the decolonization of the economy, and they want to continue on the neoliberal paradigm? That is my position when we are having conversation about the BRICS.
No, I agree with you. It's as if you're not fighting for any change.
Yeah.
How could you fight for change without asking for change?
Yeah,
so where are you fighting?
That's my issue with the BRICS.
You know, it's like when African countries get this debt cancellation, and then there's some celebration, and I'm like, debt cancellation, so what? You're going to start borrowing tomorrow again anyway, until you change the model.
Yes. I was going to say, as far as BRICS, the one thing also I'll add to what you said, I agree with what you said. Your analysis is spot on. But also, the one thing I would like to see is Africa approaching from a united front as one unit to join BRICS. And it shouldn't be, the way it seems to me right now is BRICS is here saying, okay, we are giving you choice. But we have to inspect you to see who fits in. We want you, you can come in. The rest of you do not fit in. Oh yeah, we'll take you too. So now they're still carrying on that division in Africa of I'm better, this country is better than that country, and that country is better than that country. And it is not lost on me, and this is just me and my analysis, that South Africa was the first country to be picked, and South Africa is the country that has white people as majority, as a huge percentage in control of government and economics and politics in South Africa. So just wanted to add that as far as BRICS. I don't think the way it's being done currently is the right way to go about using BRICS.
Yeah, this you want to say something?
Yes, I was going to say with regards to the BRICS concept. The BRICS concept was initially to counteract the influence of the West. It's not a perfect model. Even they said it in their opening, in their documents, but it is a project in progress. So it's not an IKEA pack. So you go in there, sometimes you'll find certain aspect of your pack missing. And then you go back to the drawing table to decide, okay, this is how we're going to proceed. Now, with regards to the African inclusion in it, they had to be careful. And the reason why they had to be careful is we're all party to the conversation so far, where France, basically some French-speaking countries have decided, you know what, we've had enough of France. So you in that kind of upheaval, you have to be conversant with the dynamics at play. Even France applied to join, and they had to say no, because so it was either a question of, do we allow your proteges to come in, or do we allow you to come in? So the answer was no to both of you, until we really source you out. Even Nigeria is not part of it. One would ask the question, why? Because for every 5 Africans, one is a Nigerian. Why is Nigeria not part of the BRICS? Again, we're talking about a mindset shift. How many Nigerians actually still believe in the African project? That in itself is a question. So when we shouldn't come away with, not just doing away with it. Allow
But
it
the
grow.
IMF is a part of the BRICS, right? They are working with the IMF, BRICS.
IMF is not part of the BRICS.
Yes, it is, but go on.
So the concept is, taking away, you said de-dollarization. The moment you pulled in Saudi Arabia and Iran, that's 2 of the giant powers in terms of oil production. Now, these are 2 countries that are historically adversaries. But the mere fact that you can get 2 of them to sit around the table in pursuance of a higher project means you, like Brother Milton said, you're giving the world a choice. So give breaks until the next meeting. Let's see what they've made in terms of progress. And then we can then say, you know what, that is just my take on it. Because it's not a hoorah. It's not like, oh, this is the panacea to all problems. It is like, at this point in time, you need a counterbalance. Because if you look on the streets of the United States, the streets of Britain, the Western cities, there are people homeless in some of the most richest economies in the world. What's the rationale for it?
It's really, this system cannot endure this system because, go ahead, brother. I think
I'm done.
So this
okay.
is what
I was just going to add to what Adesoji said. The evidence is right in front of us. And I've told my colleagues on a couple of previous occasions, I don't know if you were around during one of them, Brother Gnaka Lagoke. I know a very wealthy individual. He's actually a billionaire. And unsolicited, in a conversation, he said, Milton, this system cannot survive. I said, what do you mean? He said, there might be a revolution, perhaps in your lifetime, but not in my lifetime. He's in his 80s now. I said, why do you say this? He said, because when I started making my money in the 1980s, there used to be a middle class in this country.
Yeah, you told me that.
But that's completely crushed now. Now there's only me and everybody else. And, we see the evidence every day. In New York City, the level of homelessness is at an unprecedented scale. And you see it in even the activities on the street. I have never seen so many people at different times openly defecating on the streets.
Yeah.
I think this year alone, and this to me, it's revealing something, really. This year alone, I think I've seen it at least 8 times. 8 times. 8 times. One time I'm walking, somebody ahead of me, this is in daylight, just stopped, dropped his pants,
Yep.
boom.
I witnessed that. I ran so fast when I saw it, Milton. I was not going to wait for him to bend down.
And sister, here's the thing. It's become normalized.
Yes.
Something which is completely not normal is become normalized.
Yes.
Right? So I was just picking up on one of this, what you said, but let's get back on track.
Okay.
On this though. So Adesoji, so that's this what we're talking about. You see that we need to wait and see what, in other words, we did not say it, but what I heard is like, it looks like you were implying that you should give the benefit of the doubt to the BRICS.
Exactly.
Okay. So we understand that, but my point is that we don't have enough time. Yeah, because if people come, I've seen people in my country of different places so excited about the BRICS. We are saying that if you want to come and counter the hegemony of the West, we agree, we understand. All of us, we want a polycentric world. Kwame Nkrumah, Nelson Mandela, the current leaders, Dr. Naledi Pandor from South Africa, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Togo, Professor Robert, everyone is talking about the change of the global structure. We agree. Now, when the BRICS comes, and then we have the feeling that the paradigm that that they need to bring in order to change the world economy, they're not doing it. We should be able to tell them that something is not right.
Yes.
It's not about replacing the Americans by the Russians, even though we may be better off with the Russians because maybe they can bring safety and security to African countries. But our resources, it should not be about people coming and taking our gold and diamond. Seriously, and they're going to give like 11% or 70%. This has to change. And then if India and Russia and Brazil, if they really want Africa, they want to really build like a better world, they should somehow agree on the industrialization of Africa.
Absolutely.
You see? And then I remember that Xi Jinping, the president of China, said that China was in favor of the regional economic integration in Africa. Somehow, it was in favor of an integrated market in Africa. Good idea. But then how you do it? You understand? So it is by building things that can go beyond the artificial borders. I know that China somehow built like a railroad from Mombasa, I think, to Addis Ababa, 700 kilometers. Good thing. But when you check, according to the information that we have, it looks like it is not too transparent, but it is there. My point is that we need to promote a new value system on the face of the earth that can be about human solidarity, shared prosperity. And I spoke about the BRICS because China, I forgot about that. China has Confucianism, the Russians have the Me, the Indians have the Satyagraha, Brazil has the Bolsa Familia, and South Africa has the Ubuntu Philosophy, and the Muslim Egypt and some other countries that joined the BRICS, they have the Ummah, which is about the sense of community among the Muslims. For me, that should be the basis of any other thing that they want to bring on the face of earth. If they don't do that, and they want to counter the West, and they still use the neoliberal worldview by promoting their private companies to exploit the resources of Africa, we have to say that no. Nkrumah was going to say no. We are saying no. That's the only thing we're saying.
Yeah,
absolutely.
In fact,
in other words, the BRICS should only be as an alternative source of funding industrialization in Africa.
That's it.
Without that, there's no use for it.
But the industrialization,
and based on shared prosperity.
Industrialization combined with the Pan-African social philosophy of human life.
Yeah, but I'll say even more, industrialization where it's not companies in Africa that are owned by those entities. Companies in Africa.
That's what exists right now. That's what exists right now.
I know, yeah. We have industrialization.
We have factories in Kenya, but no industry.
But it's not for Africans. So when you build a plant in Africa, it needs to be African owned and distributing to Africa. And the way Nkrumah did it, because he did do it, when he invited the Western companies that he did, a mistake I think he made, which is how he was infiltrated, but that's my own analysis. The way he did it is, you as a Western entity, as a Western company, you could not come in and continue the exploitation. So as long as you were a company that was still exploiting Africans, you were not allowed in Ghana. And so there were requirements. You had to contribute your profits into building Ghana and uplifting the people of Ghana. That's the only way you are doing business. And you will see right now the companies in Africa, when they go to a location, the ones that are doing agriculture, right? They buy all kinds of land that is, they destroy the first time they run crops in it, and they leave it there just dying, right? And we Africans cannot go and heal it because it doesn't belong to us. It is fenced out. And so what you see is they end up in places in Africa and the community is devastated. They're even poorer now than they were before.
They're homeless.
They're homeless. They're not eating. And they now have no access to that land to make their own food. So no, that type of industrializing in Africa, no.
Yeah, so I know you guys have there are some people who are trying in Africa. Some Africans, they can be white, they can be Indians, they can be Asian. Let me finish. They can be Asians, they can be black. They are trying. I know two names that come to my mind. Two names, Aliko Dangote. We can say anything that we want about him. This guy is, I will call him, that is a builder of the African nation. There was one guy that that I have admired that I never saw many years ago. He is from Togo, believe it or not, and he created EcoBank. Yeah, I don't know if you heard about EcoBank.
Of course.
Yeah, he crossed the EcoBank, and he's the one who is also the founder of Accra Airlines. It is not easy to compete with those European airlines, but Accra Airlines is still there. Beautiful to see Ethiopian Airlines is still there. So, we have some of those champions. And then when we're having these conversations, we need, to highlight their contribution, because it is not easy, to compete with those European those multinationals.
That's good. So I'm glad that's why we also propped Abiola. I think it's important to
Abiola, of course.
Africans like that
And I
who know the challenges and are willing to stand up to the challenges.
True.
I look forward to actually covering him, and also and his wife. The taxation, right? These companies have to be taxed, because right now they're not being taxed. They're not paying tax in Africa, and that is through the free trade agreement. And I will give a quick example before we move on to the next section. In Kenya, I was recently trying to, because I'm working on a project, I was recently trying to get African clothes from Kenya to the United States to be shipped. And we wanted, because I'm all about promoting African, melanated African, and I will address in the chat, but Brother Lagoke talking about white Africans and Indian Africans. There's no such thing. Those are invaders.
That's another debate, because if they say, I'm going to respond to that though.
But hold on, let me make my taxation point, and then please respond to that. There's no such thing as a white African. There's no such thing as a white Indian. There's no such thing. No. Africans are melanated people.
Finish your point, sister, so you can respond.
This is a point too. African people are melanated people who originated from Africa. Their ancestors and themselves did not invade Africa. That's not how they ended up being African. But I looked at the African shipping company in Kenya, and they gave me their quote, and I said, why is it this expensive? And my contact there said, okay, let me go to DHL. And DHL was significantly cheaper for the same weight. I mean, a significant difference. Why? Because DHL is not being charged the same, call it levies, taxes, whatever, as that African Kenyan company. So that is what is happening. And because of that business from me that was going to go to that Kenyan company, because I don't have the means, did not go to that Kenyan company. And they lost out on that business. And trust me, I'm not the first person they lost out on business. And now look at that in a larger...
I agree, yeah.
And even that is insignificant compared to the mining companies that go there and sign 99-year leases to pay 5% tax. That's what's really killing everything.
Yeah, so then that's why, as we agree, that's why the struggle, it has to be about raising the awareness. It has to be about the Pan-African consciousness. It's about the rise to power of people who care about the interests of Africa, because those who want to continue the exploitation of Africa, they want to put in power a leader that they can control, who can give them those deals, for them to prosper and for the companies to prosper. And that's why we're doing everything that we're doing, and then that's why we are excited about what is happening in Mali. That's why we are excited about what is happening in Niger, in Burkina Faso today, the same way we were excited about what Thomas Sankara tried to do, what Rawlings tried to do, what Nkrumah generation, they tried to do. So that is the conversation. Now, coming back to the conversation about
African.
African. I understand that people think that it's only African, a black person in Africa. I respect that, but that issue was resolved in 1958 at the All African People's Conference in Ghana. You may not agree, but I'm giving you the information. There was a huge debate in 1958 at the All African People's Conference, a huge debate. Who is an African? And then they debated. And then before the 1958 conference, the understanding about who was an African was about being black. And then at that conference, certainly thanks to the Nkrumah's understanding and Nkrumah's contributions, and Padmore and Tom Mboya and many others, is an African, somebody who is born in Africa and who claims Africa as its exclusive place. You're not claiming any other place but Africa. And then you have the interests of Africa at heart. And during the colonial time, if you can respect the law or the rule of the majority, which is what the majority composed of black people. So that issue was resolved in 1958. That's why when you see people like Achille Mbembe who think that Pan-Africanism is just about black nationalism, the information is not accurate, because Pan-Africanism has evolved from 1900 during the first conference organized by Henry Sylvester Williams until 1958. That's why people spoke about multi-racialism. And when Kwame Nkrumah was talking about the African personality coined by Blyden in the 19th century, when Blyden was putting emphasis on black nationalism, but when Kwame Nkrumah used it in 1958, it was no longer about black nationalism, it was about multi-racialism, multiculturalism. And then even when you use the concept of the African community, it is still about that multi-racial dimension. So now, to conclude on that,
well,
there are some people, white people born in Africa. I've seen some Lebanese born in Ivory Coast. And then you see that those people, they care more about the interests of Africans than those Negroes who are the unpatriotic sons and daughters of Africa. Then what do you do?
I would take a Susan Williams compared to Mobutu any day.
Listen,
Susan Williams, right? Susan Williams.
I will take Susan Williams over
any
Mobutu.
Day.
Let me finish. I will take Heather Beno over Mobutu. I will take Amber Murray, who wrote a book on Thomas Sankara. Ruth First, the wife of Joe Slovo, killed in South Africa.
Yes,
and
yes,
then,
yes. And Joe Slovo himself too.
I will choose Fidel Castro over Blaise Compaoré. Yes,
absolutely.
I will choose those white people.
I agree with you. That's a strong, clear decision.
Can I make a suggestion?
Hold on.
Can we have this as a whole topic for a show? Because I think this is actually very interesting.
Yes. Let's talk about that. Who's an African? Yes.
Let's make it a whole topic of a show. And then, but let's
allow you invite, I want to be around.
Okay, no, we're going to invite you.
To be the guest. Yes.
Okay. You're going to be the guest for that show.
So,
maybe even our first year.
But why don't we spend the time?
Let me give you one more example. More example. All of us, we can investigate that. I was coming. When I was coming from South Africa, the person sitting next to me is an Afrikaner, so of course white boy, and then but he was humble enough, and we have a very good conversation, and then we spoke about all those things. But I think his name is Enrich, and I can say his name. Maybe I will send the interview. But it opened my eyes on something very important, because we were talking about how many Afrikaners want to dwell in the past. They don't want to change with the evolution of South Africa. But he gave me a name. I don't know the name, but he gave me the example of the rugby, South African rugby team.
The Springboks. They're called the Springboks.
the coach who is an Afrikaner. You know, so I will choose that boy over many Africans who are fighting against us. That guy, the team was just for many Afrikaners. Somehow he promoted black players, put them in the team when many Afrikaners thought that they should not do so. And in the end, back to back, they won what? 2 World Cups. That person, in the conversation that we're having, we cannot deny him if he wants to claim his Africanness because he's contributing to healing the nation of South Africa.
Okay, let's make it a whole topic for sure. I think you will get good contribution. But why don't we go to the comments now?
Can I just quickly add this? Can I just quickly
please,
add
of course. It's only fair. Go ahead.
On the question of who is in Africa, do you know who raised that resolution? The resolution. Who posed the question at the All Africa People's Conference? Do you know who posed the question?
Several people spoke. I don't know. Maybe tell me if I know.
It was Frantz Fanon.
Oh, okay. So it was.
And Nkrumah then said, and I quote, "I am not African because I was born in Africa. I'm African because Africa is born in me. The concept of being an African is born in me."
That's so, though. It doesn't address the white people and the Indians, but go on.
Okay, that's another conversation.
That's why I said
in January we start with that one. In January, who is an African?
Let's look at the comments from our viewers before we close.
Okay,
that will be our opening show. Adesoji, we can go at it then. I have to say this conversation. Oh, let me just put them up. I have to say this conversation has been one of the 2 best gifts I've given myself this entire year. The other was the Nubia tour of Kemet. There's a group of Africans that did a tour recently of Kemet. About 200 people went there with Professor Greg Kerr from Howard University.
Wow.
And then and Mario Beatty. Let me not not speak like. Miss out on mentioning Dr. Mario Beatty also went with them. Does reparations include Arab slavers, maltreatment of Africans, and intrusion on the continent? Yes, please ask the questions, people. And Dr. Lagoke, please address.
Okay, so if I remember well, I think that the conference that was organized in South Africa in 2014. That claim that the organizers said that they were organizing the 8th Pan-African Congress. If I recall, for them reparations should go. It should be about the Arab slavers and the European slavers in 2014. I think in South Africa. The conversation that we had in Accra, it was more about the Europeans.
Right.
Okay, and then one thing I forgot to say is that in the beginning, at the opening ceremony of the conference, the Minister of War of Algeria was there, and he gave it like a beautiful speech, and he was even played some role like in the conversation. He was there having conversations, during the panels or the plenaries, and then. What he said was also very interesting. Algeria too wants reparations, even though it's not monetary, because of the war that the French did against Algeria by destroying the properties, killing millions of Algerians. So that is the conversation. So somehow, as I was talking about the 1958 All African People's Conference, it was a turning point in the history of Africa. As back then in the 50s and 60s, there was no mention. It's like they transcended the racial divide, and then Algerians, Arabs, and Indians, some white Africans, even though Duku does not like that, and many Black Africans somehow agreed that they need to fight and then for the decolonization of Africa. So the answer. It was in Accra. It was not about the Arabs. It was not about the descendants of those who enslaved Africa from the 14th century to the 17th century through the trans-Saharan trade.
Yeah.
It was controlled by the Arabs and the Berbers.
I'm gonna say, being an African from East Africa, a melanated African from East Africa, that yes, this conversation of the Arab slavery, enslavement of African people should be highlighted, and it's always swept under the rug, or at least not given enough attention as it should be. Having sat down with my
because
father,
the focus has been on the Atlantic
yes,
slave trade.
having sat down with my father earlier this year, it surprised me when he told me that white people went to the interior and took people from my peoples, Akamba people, and took them to the coast and sold them for enslavement. And
Zanzibar.
also, as I was doing research, you find out that they used to take them from East Africa through Zanzibar, all the way around the Cape of Good Hope, all the way around to the Americas. So some of them did end up in America. So again, yes, the Arabs, and especially because the Arabs began before the white people, they will be held accountable. They must repair the harm. And even after the white people came, they were the middlemen. And some of them were the most horrific people. What they did in Zanzibar, Kenya, and Tanzania is horrible, and it must be repaired. So yes, the Arabs too. And to be specific, in that area, Oman is one of those places.
Oman.
Yes.
Yes, that's where the Sultan of Zanzibar came from. And
Exactly.
that's why they had the Zanzibar Revolution was very bloody because of that. Yeah.
Yes, they must repair. Here is this one. Did he say, as in Dr. Lagoke, Ndugu Lagoke, did he
Ambassador.
say, Ambassador Lagoke, His Excellency?
No, I'm not ambassador of anything. I'm just the servant of Africa. No ambassador. Don't put me in the group. Don't put me in the group of those self-proclaimed ambassadors and ministers.
Remember yesterday when you asked me and I told you how I detect that someone is committed to the African people? See what you just did? Do you see what you just did? You didn't sit there with your chest wide open and say, yes, as ambassador.
You
said,
repudiated the title.
I'm a servant.
Let him address the question.
But here's the question. Did he say the hydroelectric project will provide power to all of Africa?
Yeah, if my information is correct, this is what I read. Yes. The Chekada just spoke about that. And it's not even just that. The son of Africa. I've read that again. The Germans were working on a project to put together like a solar panel, solar power project, and to take electricity from Africa to go and bring light to 500 million people in Europe.
And
was this during the colonial era or
no? Very
my
recent.
brother, the 20th century. Yes.
And it wasn't going to distribute on the path. It was going straight
to Europe. So I think I even mentioned that in my dissertation or something like that. Yes. So the projects are there. People have already done that. But somehow, if the African want to do that, then it's going to be an issue because those who continue to exploit us want to control everything that we do. Yes.
Yeah.
So I cannot tell the brother that I have all the figures now, but I read that. Yes, the power can give
the Inga project. The potential is just phenomenal. And listeners, you can viewers rather, you can look it up, do the research.
Yeah, I read the same thing as well. Here we go. This is some good tip on all of us as far as learning Russian language. If we're going to be working with them, let's understand what they're saying around us. Mir also sounds like the Russian word for world and peace, therefore world peace. So if that's what they hold up to, we can work with them under our terms.
But like again, they're not promoting that when they do business with us.
See what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's the person who just spoke certainly knows he knows like Russian. But in my research, this is what I've discovered. So yes, it means world, it means peace, it means community, it means village. But if you want to come and change and go against the Europeans, okay, we agree. Many in Africa have sympathy for Russia, but when it comes to economic development, we want a change of paradigm.
Yeah, I think this one should be addressed because I've seen it a lot. The development in BRICS doesn't stop Africa from integrating and becoming one. Africa should look within more than anything else. Within. Let's look within us, right? Pointing fingers at everyone else doesn't help.
Yeah, we are not putting fingers at everyone. We are promoting the Pan-African vision. Like you said, if those African countries enter the BRICS, There should not be there just as an African country. There should be there as a collective, as a trans-individual country representing the entire continent of Africa. Ethiopia can take the lead, and Egypt and South Africa, and they say, you know what? We are members of the BRICS. Let's work together, not just for our respective countries, but on behalf of the entire continent. They can come together, for instance, and then propose to the BRICS, and listen to me, and propose to the BRICS the Cape to Cairo road or railroad. They can propose that and say, you know what? We want the BRICS to put money in it, and let's see if on how as African countries or Africa can have at least 51% of the project, and the rest, if we want, you can take the 49%. They can do that, and the money is there, because if China is trying to do the
Belt and Road Highway,
Belt and Road, like a project
initiative,
all those like trillions of dollars of projects. That's something that the people can think about. Egypt, South Africa, and then Ethiopia can propose that, to them.
Right.
So yes,
and the benefit would be tremendous.
Yeah, tremendous. Yes.
Yeah. So we didn't specifically speak about Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. If you can please update us on what's going on there. And as much as it pains me, I'm going to put the link where you can get The Struggle Continues. Apparently, and I heard some bookstores complaining about this, it's only available on Amazon. But go ahead, Dr.
But I think you were yesterday. You were right. We should have listened to the female's intuition.
Hey, we've been telling you, we've been showing you, but you don't listen. But go ahead.
No. Yesterday we should have listened to you. She said, no, if we have to change the topic. She said, no. But listen, we spoke for 1 hour. We could not
touch Mali, Burkina, and Niger.
Yes, so I have to concede you were right on that.
Thank you for doing that, brother.
But brother, she was wrong in trying to resist the Pan-African perspective.
That's not what I did. I said let's start with Mali and then go Pan-African.
So anyway, I agree with each one of you. Okay, second answer. So listen, in this conversation that we're having, the beautiful things is that we heard about the Mali, the Niger, and the Burkina Faso idea of putting together a federation or confederation.
Right.
I've seen in many circles, many people are happy about it. The reason why is because those countries, each one of them, is fighting for the sovereignty of Africa. The leaders are fighting for the respective sovereignties of their countries. And then that is the most important thing today in Africa, because the conversation that we just had, if you are not a sovereign nation, if you don't control your policies, formulation and policies implementation, if you do not control your resources, therefore you are just a representative of the neocolonial agenda in Africa. In the case of those three countries, we see that there are things I don't want to talk too much about because I did not get a chance to investigate that. But it looks like they're changing the mining codes, like in those countries, so that the state and the people of the countries can benefit from the resources of those countries. But one thing that is very important also, because in the history of Africa, before we even talk about the regional economic communities, SADC, ECOWAS, the Union of Economic
Maghreb Union,
right?
East African Community.
East African Community. Before we talk about those things, we need to know that in the history of Africa, beside the Union of South Africa and beside the Central African Federation from 1952 to 1963, there were some attempts by African leaders to put into place some Pan-African units. The Ghana-Guinea, Mali Union, the Ghana-Guinea Union, the Ghana-Guinea-Mali Union, and then also
the Senegal and Gambia.
But particularly the Congo-Ghana Union that Nkrumah and Lumumba were put together, and also one of the few successful one is Tanganyika that you can talk about. So there were those attempts, and then today in the context of the renewal of Pan-Africanism, in the context of the revival of Pan-Africanism, to see those three countries coming together to create that the Sahel Federation, I think it is a very important moment in the history of Pan-Africanism. So that is what we are saying, and then we want people to understand that this initiative needs to be supported as it should, but we need to do more than just ideas of references to that. We want to see concrete and practical steps, and then we're waiting on leaders to see if they're going to have one currency, one government, a same parliament. So we want to see. I also forgot to talk about the Federation of Mali. The Federation of Mali was composed of French Sudan, which is today's Mali, and then we have Senegal, which was part of it. Mauritania was part of it. Benin, Dahomey, and somehow with the European interference, with Houphouët-Boigny's rule, many of those countries left, and there were only two of them, Senegal and then Mali. They even have meetings to have like a same parliament, and somehow, again, with the neo-colonial interference, Senegal left the union, and this is how Mali, that French Sudan, left got the name Mali. The beginning, it was just to be the Malian Federation. Right. It was not just the French Sudan that it used to be. So yes, so this is also one of the attempts of our forefathers, to put together a Pan-African, those put together those Pan-African units.
Okay.
So what would you say to listeners who are saying, what are the prospects that they will have a better chance this time? What should they do differently?
And to
in your estimation,
and to piggyback on that, since we have little time and so that you can answer both questions, there are those who are criticizing them, those who carried out the coup, as criminals who did not honor democratically elected governments. So how do you address that? Both questions.
Listen, we passed that. We no longer talk about democracy according to the European. Of course, we want freedom of press. We want freedom of association. We want all those concepts about democracy. We agree on that. We don't want somebody to come and do like Abacha, because when people talk about things, Abacha was different. If he can go and kill Ken Saro-Wiwa, even when Mandela said no, you should not do that, everyone said leave the guy alone, and he went anyway, and Ken Saro-Wiwa was killed. Chani and Assimi Goïta and Ibrahim Traoré, they are not Abacha. They're military leaders. And then the coups that they did were the outcomes of some people's power movement on the ground. And then so far, even though people are not living in the most ideal democratic environments, the way they're governing is completely different from what we saw with many dictatorship in Africa. So I just wanted to put it there. So for me, even though we want people to have their rights respected, for the greater good, today Mali, Niger, and Burkina, they are leading that Pan-African consciousness in the 21st century, and we need to give them a chance for them to succeed. That is not the time to come and say and denounce them the way people did, and then if they fail, because guess what? When people were talking about the coup d'etats, the coups in Africa, the French went and they did a coup in Gabon, because now we know that they did a coup in Gabon because they saw that the guy who was the bongo son who was there was not doing what they wanted. Somehow they replaced him to put somebody there in order to give him a new life to the French system there.
And the same thing in Chad.
Something in Chad. And as they were talking about military juntas in Mali, in Niger, and in Mali, Niger, in Burkina Faso, the same French media, they're talking about the leader of Gabon who did the coup d'etat as the head of state, and then they even had Alassane Dramane Ouattara who wanted to do the war against Niger and against Mali, the Ouattara somehow welcome the guy in Ivory Coast. That is what it is.
Hypocrisy.
Double standards, and this is what we're denouncing.
Right.
And Ali Mahdi's question was: there are people who say they will not succeed. What are their chances?
No, well, how should they do it differently?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So one of the things that they're not doing right, even though the fact that they are still there, particularly Mali, they've been there for more than 2 years.
Right.
And then Niger, there was a popular mobilization of many people from different parts of the world, and then somehow ECOWAS could not do the war. So far, they have not done the war. So these are great things. We're hearing news that Mali and then Burkina Faso, they're winning some battles on the ground against the Islamists. These are beautiful things. The countries are still there. So far, no. There seems to be a sense of unity in each one of those countries around the leaders. Good things. But one thing, and then Mali, they communicate very well. I don't think Burkina Faso communicates well the way Mali communicates well. In Niger, somehow they need to upgrade their communications, the program of skills.
Right.
But one thing that they're not doing, the three countries that I just mentioned, I hear that they will be thinking about it. Sometimes when people say, you know what, why Togo should organize a Pan-African Congress? Togo does not have any credibility to organize a Pan-African Congress. My answer is this. We've been supporting Mali. We've been supporting Mali for 2 or 3 years now. Why Mali was not able to organize a big Pan-African gathering in Mali for all the Pan-Africanists of the world to come together to assess the revolution in Mali.
Absolutely.
And then to try and link that to the revolution of Modibo Keïta, that they don't even talk about enough. And then to talk about all those Pan-African ancestors like Kwame Nkrumah, Mandela, and all those leaders.
Yes,
that's the problem.
That's beyond a problem. That is calamitous, you know.
Yeah, seriously, and I don't get it. I've never tried to talk to any Malian leaders. That's why in the conversations, I can talk about that in the conversation that we're having about the 9th Pan-African Congress. That's why one of the regional conferences in the way leading up to the 9th Pan-African Congress in Togo, that's why that conference is supposed to take place in Mali. The initiative was not supposed to come from Togo or from us. The initiative should have come from the Malians.
Absolutely.
You see, sometimes people are so excited about little victories. They do it, what they do is great. But the Europeans have destroyed people who were far greater and better than them.
Absolutely. If they could destroy Nkrumah,
be happy about some victories.
Right.
So why people are talking about Kwame Nkrumah today? Why? The guy fought them. He was a pioneer.
Right.
He organized rallies after rallies, conferences after conferences. I mentioned the Conference of Africa, the Independent African States, the first one from April 15 to April the 22nd. Yep. He organized, I'm coming to that. He organized the All Africa People's Conference in Ghana from December 8 to December 13, 1958. He organized a conference for the freedom fighters. Nkrumah organized the Conference of the Africanists in 1960, bringing intellectuals of the world. Yep. So today, when all of them are gone, and then we are trying to find our compass in order to try and see what we can do for the sovereignty of Africa, all of us, we go back to Kwame Nkrumah's books. He wrote 14 of them.
Right.
So the leaders in Mali, in Burkina Faso, and in Niger, we are clapping, we are applauding them, we are supporting them. But what they're doing, they are not elevating the game where it should be. They have to what? To level up.
Right. They have to.
They have to level up.
Otherwise,
so
they risk being undermined.
I don't talk like that usually, but guess what? We don't everything like in private, tell the people, it's like they don't get it.
Right.
Sankara was doing a great job.
Yes.
And after 4 years, they got him.
Yes.
Right. And that was it.
10 years from Nkrumah. Great.
And they always do.
They always
do.
And what's Amilcar Cabral?
Yep.
Amilcar Cabral was a genius.
Right.
He did not get a chance to be a leader. They destroyed him.
And look where his country is now today.
So anyway, they need to organize. They should be taking the lead. So that's why, coming back to Togo, if Togo does not have a history of Pan-Africanism, and even though this can be disputed, but even Togo does not have the history of being a great Pan-African nation, if they have decided to do a Pan-African gathering, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt, because those that people we are supporting, I was about to forget the name of Ange Touadera from the Central African Republic. It's been there for 10 good years. Have you seen the guy? Have you seen him organize like a Pan-African meeting? No. But people who are supporting him, they support him in the name of Pan-Africanism, in the name of nationalism, in the name of sovereignty. What has he done for all the people who are supporting him? What did he do? He just changed the constitution to be in power. For what? So something has to change. And then it is about time that we talk like that to the leader. We support them when they do the right thing. And again, in the case of Mali, how many times have you heard the leaders of Mali talking about Modibo Keïta? They don't even want to claim him. People may not like him, but when you talk about Pan-Africanism, and you talk about Mali independence, listen,
you can't ignore that history.
Talk about Modibo Keïta.
Their masters don't
when
want
Assimi Goïta decided to expel the French, everyone is excited. But he's not the first to do that in Mali. Modibo Keïta was the first to do so.
Yeah.
But how many people know that in Africa?
There's a lot of things our people need to know that they don't know.
I mean, each of those leaders have someone to look up to, but unfortunately, the poverty of philosophy means it's not going to happen. You mentioned Modibo Keïta for Mali. In Burkina Faso, you have Thomas Sankara. In Guinea, you have Sékou Touré. In Togo, you have Civilus Olympio. In Niger, you have what's his name, Tani. I mean, there is a whole raft of intellectuals and leaders with Pan-Africanist ideals. But unfortunately, again, poverty of the mind is indeed a problem. And like the great old man said it, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, we need to decolonize our minds. So, yeah.
Okay, so that's Nduku. So that's our job. You know, I know. Anytime I become like that, you love it. I don't know why.
You need to spend more time with me. This is clear because you'll be more.
Listen, we're tired. We send people, please do things. Listen, they don't get it. We are supporting them because of Pan-Africanism, because of African nationalism, and they do the right thing. Okay, now let's have the meat often. You have the resources. You have the mining sector that you use it to survive. Okay. But educating people is part of that, raising the awareness. And so that's why hopefully in 2024, there are several initiatives of people want to organize Pan-African Congresses. It's a beautiful thing. The 8th Pan-African Congress, the Global Pan-African Movement, Dr. Arikana, all of them. And we have that 9th Pan-African Congress led by Togo with the support of South Africa and many other countries, with the African Union. And we started with the launch ceremony in May in Togo, 2023. There was a side event at the UN, September 2023. And then we did the first of regional conference in South Africa, December 4th to December 5, 2023. In Brazil, we want to take the conversation to the next level about reparations and then restitution, reconstruction, and remembrance. As we do so, we want people to, we want to engage like a real movement towards Lomé, and this is what we're doing. So I appreciate you for the opportunity, to talk about those elements. Thank you.
Join me. I would love you and Alimadi, and we can talk outside of this, to join me in starting a project where we provide this education to our brothers and sisters in Africa. Let's figure out how we can do that, because now we have an organization that is going to be educating. So please, let's plan that and see how we can provide that education so that we can decolonize our minds and our brothers and sisters' minds. Thank you all. Any last words, my brothers?
Your people
continua.
Same here. See you next week.
Thank you all. Asanteni. See you January 7th. That's the next time you will see us, apart from next week on Thursday, December 21st. we will have a Kwanzaa event at, I believe it's going to be 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or 8 a.m. We will announce, we'll put out the announcements. You will see them. Look out for them. Thank you all and have a
Wait,
good day.
I don't think the guest gave a final word.
Yes, please.
Oh, okay.
Gnaka
Okay.
Lagoke.
Listen, anytime I am invited by those three African geniuses,
Here we go, setting by, we're not geniuses, we are students.
no, you guys are geniuses, and then three of those African geniuses who are doing the right thing and for Africa. So anytime, for me, it becomes like my priority. It's a pleasure, the way you conduct the debate. I love it, the harmony in the group, and I wish you success. And then yeah, we are doing it. We don't have to be giants coming from a different planet. We are, to quote Alice Walker, we are the ones we've been waiting for.
Absolutely.
And then and one of my favorite poems is that I think that's again from the same lady, or maybe saying that when life descends into the pit, I must become my own candle, burning myself willingly to turn the darkness around me. This is what you are doing, and I appreciate you for that. And let's rally around the 9th Pan-African Congress. It is the revolt of the Africans, and then we need to promote Pan-Africanism, make sure that it becomes the most shared idea in the in the 21st century. And then tomorrow, people will be talking about us. The way they talk about Lumumba and Nkrumah and Modibo Keita, not for our glory, but that will be our gratification. And this is what we're doing. And we are not moved by greed or by money, but we just want to serve the continent of Africa, because it is about time. If we don't do it, then we will do it. If it is not now, then when?
Yep.
This is what we're doing.
Great closing. Asante sana. Kwaherini.
Kwaherini.
Everyone.
All right.